roll. So,
well, actually, you know what, one of my employees wants to jump in on this.
sure, happy to have anyone join that wants
Yeah,
to.
he has the last thing that you sent in the email, so he doesn't have the current ID and password.
Sure, let me, do you want to just text it to him, or I can just.
Yeah, I'm gonna text it to him right now.
All right, so the meeting ID is,
Hold on. ID. Okay, what is it?
well, shall we kick it off? You ready, Jerred?
Ready? Everybody have their bunny slippers on?
I think so.
Right
See a
on.
couple of folks look like they're relaxing.
Cool.
So first I want to say thanks so much for meeting with us tonight. For everyone on the call, Jerred is staying late. It's actually 10 o'clock where he's at. So props to Jerred for spending his late night with the Arizona Audio Video Club. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that. And we'll just start off with the questionnaire. So just a little bit about yourself. How did you become attracted to the audio world? What got you into this business?
Okay, well, we're gonna start right off the top. Okay, well, I actually started at a very young age. Believe it or not, I was 12 years old. I had asked for a stereo system for Christmas. And, you know, that Christmas morning, you know, ran down, looked under the Christmas tree, there was my stereo system. So after, you know, the family, you know, we opened up all our gifts and everything, I grabbed my stereo system, ran to my bedroom, set the thing up, and I tuned in to my favorite radio station, which was 94.7 back in Detroit, Michigan. And, you know, the DJ was on and he was talking, and while he was doing that, you know, I popped in the cassette and basically sat there in anticipation for the very first song. And believe it or not, it was Foreigner. Was it All I Want Is Love, or What I Want Is Love, or something like that? And that was the first song I recorded, and man, I've been hooked. I mean, from there, you know, I've had multiple stereo systems, you know, until I started working for Jolita. And yeah, I mean, everything before that was solid state, and then I had a taste of the tubes, and that really kicked things off. Fell in love with it.
That's awesome. So you discovered it from a young age, and now you've been able to turn that passion into your core business.
You know, my whole family, you know, are you know, musicians. You know, all my sisters, my brothers. You know, I'm actually one of 7. And, you know, we all played in bands. You know, I actually played the trombone. So, you know, music there. And, you know, after college and everything, you know, I worked in the clubs in Detroit and had a very good opportunity to, you know, get into that industry, you know, the entertainment industry, and the amount of concerts that I got to see, you know, because I knew everybody. You just walk right into a concert, you know. New security, so they just, you know, take me down, put me up like second row or something, first row, a couple of concerts, and you know, and I think that's where also I picked up an ear, you know, for live music, how music is supposed to sound live, you know, and transferring it to, you know, building a system. I mean, that's one of our goals is how do we create a song, you know, on a stereo system to sound as lively and in person like a concert. And so that's one of the things I strive for is, you know, when we're building a system, it's like they're in the room, you're there. And I mean, that's what we're all trying to do anyways, you know. So yeah.
So I guess I would assume that listening to music is important to your life. So can you tell us a little bit about, you know, how you enjoy music? What's your home system? I mean, imagine it's Jolita, but what else is in there?
Oh, I was gonna throw a joke at you guys. You know, it's a total Mac rig. You know, it's, you know, you can't imagine you listen to anything else, right? You know, but actually, it's my home system is prototypes. You know, things that I have built over the years. in terms of, doing the audio shows. The current system that I have in my, at home now is it was the 2018 Capital Audio Fest system that I had. That's when we really had all the circuits done, as prototypes, getting into the manufacturing. And, that system, we shared a Best Sound Show award with $1 million system from that show. And, that's what I have at home, plus, like, most people don't know, but part of the collaboration of Black Lights Audio is Jim Fosgate. And both Jim and I, we take our work home. We really do. And, it's in our systems, it's our designs. We sit there, we become engaged with it, we tweak it, we get intimate with it, we get to know the circuit. And from there, we're able to, put out a better product. So yeah, I mean, the home system is really a lot of the behind the scenes work. Is all that time listening and enjoying it and finding how we can do things better.
Got it. So your system today is the winner of the 2018 Capital Audio Fest.
Yep.
I'm so curious though, like what exactly, if it's not prototypes, if it's production stuff now, what is it that you use?
Well, those are prototypes that were at that show. So I have the Fusion F360 preamplifier, which in the down here on the second shelf, that's the F360 preamp. But that one is loaded with all kinds of more high-end parts, naked Z4 resistors. I have Reiki audio capacitors in there. OCC single crystal cast wire throughout. So I mean, it's really jazzed up. I'm running the F22, the 50-watt integrated amplifier with it. And right now, what I'm running with the system, I don't have the, you kind of see them, not really, but behind me I have the Vienna acoustics that we had at that show. What I have at home is a pair of, let's see, those are Van L Speakerworks out of Chicago, John Van L. That I just kind of threw in the room for the time being.
Check those out. I haven't heard of that.
It's about when I got them, I think they were about $2,600 retail. So bookshelf speaker.
Yeah, I learn something new every day. I'll definitely have to check those out after this call.
Right on. Yeah, so it's a good speaker. It really does.
So then, can you share? I mean, you said pretty much you joined Jolita, it sounds like, quickly after college. Can you tell us a little bit about Jolita / Black Ice? Because I know that there's been a name change, but really, can you describe the history with the company and the design philosophy? I mean, tubes seem to be a popular and recurring theme in all of your electronics.
Well, let me start off by saying, Black Ice Audio, it's a new company. It's not a rebrand. It's a new company. It's we are new circuits, new designs, a new team, with the collaboration of Jim Fosgate, myself, Mike Allen, and the infrastructure of Jolita, which is a few other engineers and the staff. Which big shout out to my staff. The guys that that are doing the final assembly here. Packing and shipping out, making sure everything's right. Just all those final touches. So in terms of where Jolita comes into play, it's really the infrastructure. As the new CEO of Black Ice Audio, basically I took the infrastructure from Mike, and we're starting a new company with all those years of experience. And then with the help of Fosgate, I mean that guy's been around a long time. I mean, he's been a pioneer in so many aspects of audio. I mean, he's like the final touch. I mean, it's really help us put ourselves on the map as a new company. With like I said, new designs. For example, what's in the amplifiers here is our new circuits that started about 5 years ago. A new tube circuit that's never been done in audio, and what we're getting from it is it's unbelievable. And also, I think you brought up, tubes are a reoccurring theme. Nothing against solid state. I'm maybe a little biased there, but I believe most people, when they're building a high-end audio system, or even just a mid-fi audio system, or trying to get that sound in their house, they're really looking for that natural and organic sound. Like the band is in the room, and you're enjoying the emotion and everything else that comes with it. Tubes provide that. Tubes nail it. I feel that solid state, until you get in those really high, prices, it's usually dry and sterile. It's not. It doesn't do the things that tubes do, and I think that's where we get into that tube magic.
So you mentioned that the integrated behind you has a different type of circuit than is typical. Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? I'm curious.
Okay, so the new circuits that are in the amplifiers, and that's the F11, F22, F35, and soon to be the F100s. We're getting everything geared up, over in the factory. They should be here soon for the final assembly, maybe another 6 weeks, I think. We'll be able to bring them out. They all share the same circuit, and that is called the Odyssey circuit. The Odyssey circuit is a dual-phase V-drive circuit. That's the short explanation. The long-term explanation is a fully balanced differential push-pull design. And so what makes these a little bit different than your typical tube circuits that are out there, and like the Jolita, the old Jolita circuits, those usually run a 3-stage design, okay, where there's inversion of phase throughout the staging. This circuit is only a 2-stage, and what also makes this special, unlike the old tube circuits, most tube circuits run about a 20 dB negative feedback loop. We're running about 4.5 dB. So it's how it behaves is the best way I can explain it. It's very efficient. So right behind me on the the right side of the rack is the F11, is rated at 18.5 watts. That amplifier, you can't really, I don't know if you can see them, but the Vienna Acoustics speakers that we've been showing at the different audio shows are about 87 dB. That F11 at 18.5 watts drives these speakers like it was a 60-watt amplifier. It's quite unreal how this circuit works, and how delicate it can be when the music calls for it. But when you want to slam and you want that punchy bass, full mids, those sparkling highs, it delivers. It does it.
This kind of flows right into our next question, which is some of the benefits and misconceptions regarding tube electronics in musical reproduction. So I noticed that there's either folks on one side of the fence that love tubes and the way that they sound, they say they're very musical, and then there's other folks that are more objectionists, and they focus on measurements, and they say, yeah, but tubes don't measure the best. So, I mean, being predominantly in the tube manufacturing, well, using tubes in your electronics, can you help us navigate that a little bit?
Well, I probably agree on that. But in terms of the benefits, I mean, tubes provide those silky smooth highs, full mids, that 3-dimensional holographic mids. And I think with the right tube circuit, you can get that tight, powerful bass that solid state gives you. I mean, we get it with our circuits. I think some of the misconceptions is the bass. They think solid state can only give you the best bass. Once again, I would disagree with that. But overall, when I have someone on the phone and I'm speaking with them about the difference, okay, what a tube circuit or a tube sound is compared to solid state, I always refer to this explanation. You're standing out in the middle of a field. You look up, you see the lightning, and then you feel and hear the thunder as it washes over you. Usually solid state, you're being force fed the information. Okay? Whereas and this is where we get into like the terms tube magic. With tubes, the music washes over you naturally, organic. I mean, it's a totally different presentation, of the sound. And I think that's we have with Fosgate and I, we and Mike, we talk about specific parts and certain parts of the circuit, this and that. And I remember Fosgate was going on, we got to try these particular type of resistors in this particular location, the circuit. We're like, why? Because Jim's like, because it sounds wet. Whereas solid state is very dry and sterile, tubes can become very wet and natural. And so finally we ended up putting the resistors in those places, and he called up, so what do you think? Well, you're right. We didn't quite understand exactly what you meant when you said wet, but you're absolutely right. There is a wetness to the sound. It's like when someone is singing, you almost feel like they're spitting right in the mic. It's so natural, and you're picking up all the the reflections of the voice, this and that, like they're right in the room.
Great explanation. I like the imagery that the lightning and thunder invokes. It's a good way to conceptualize it.
That's the difference between tubes and solid state. And the other technology that's out there is tubes wash over you. You're in it. You're not being force fed it. You're enjoying it. You're in it. You're feeling it. You get the emotion. You get the weight. You get the air. That a lot of other systems, technologies just don't give to you.
So you mentioned previously, well, actually a couple of times now, Jim Fosgate, in that he's very involved in your design. So can you tell us a little bit more about that partnership?
Sure. Well, Jim, Fosgate, he likes to go by the nickname Foz. And bear with me. I'll tell you a little bit, a little story, and then I'll feed in, about the partnership. But Fosgate and myself and Mike and everything, we have been collaborating for about 10 years, and we've been designing other products for other brands. And we got to a point that we had the same philosophy, and so we started working together. Now, the very first product that I worked directly with Jim, and here comes the story. We have the what's called the Foz XTR, the crosstalk reduction product. That reduces crosstalk coming from a cartridge, and it also adjusts for if your azimuth is off. So this product started off, someone, one of the other engineers was working on it, and there was some things going on, and finally, it was thrown on my desk and said, hey, give Foz a call and see if we can get this thing straight. I said, okay. So I gave Foz a call, and it started off as a two chassis product. You had the calibration part of it, and then you also had a digital meter. And to be honest with you, it was a little messy. Why have two chassis and all these connections and this and that? And so I looked at it and I gave Foz a call and I said, Jim, I'm Jerred with Jolita. And, we had met once before, but he didn't really know me. And I said, well, there's some issues here, this and that. And he's like, well, we can address them, but I know you guys really want to get this to the market. And I was like, Jim, nobody has anything like this. I said, we have all the time in the world. So let's take our time. Well, in about 45 minutes, we redesigned this whole product and into one single box, calibration, and an analog meter. I mean, it was a nice, elegant package. And we were able to do it at a very affordable cost, for the consumer. So that's how it kind of started. Now, after that, as we were, going into production on that, I flew out and got to meet Jim. And from that point on, I mean, going back and thinking about it, it really is a pleasure to know Fosgate. I mean, he's a legend. He knows, he's been around. He knows so much, and I'm trying to think the best way I can put it. There's in different industries, there's a transition in terms of going into a new era, and I think we people that are into tubes, they recognize it in like tube manufacturing. And I'm probably rambling on here a little bit, so sorry. But we know that the new old stock tubes sound way better than the new stock tubes. And the question is why? Well, I think what has happened is all those old guys that were working on all that on the tubes and the tube equipment and everything, they knew tricks of the trade, but they just didn't pass it on. And I think part of my relationship with Fosgate is he has passed on a lot of knowledge to me, and I'm hoping that one day, I can take everything that I've absorbed and be able to pass it on to the next guy. And at the same time, knowing Fosgate and being younger, being more into the times of what's available in terms of technologies. I mean, we're talking about parts, concepts, new designs and everything. We've really found that, after, spending time and designing things together, that we're actually a really good match. There's synergy there. For example, the Foz SSX, which is our soundstage expander, and that's, you're able to control how you want your soundstage. You want it a focused soundstage, or you want a wide soundstage, and it's all based on phasing. Well, that product started off as a solid state product, and let me go back a step here. When we looked at the Foz XTR, after Mike and I took a listen to it and the rest of the guys, we were like, oh wow, this is amazing, And so we called up Jim and said, hey, what else you got? And Jim's like, oh, I have it. He's like, I'll build it tonight and ship it to you tomorrow. It's like, okay, great. Well, what showed up was I guess what you'd call the Dimension Pro, because that's what the patent's under. Like I said, it was solid state, and then it morphed into tubes. And that's one of the reasons why I had gone out to see Fosgate that first trip, was also to discuss, at that time it was called the SSE and not the SSX. And we designed it, and we had a box, and we had one tube sticking out on one side of the box, and the rest of the box was all empty. So we were there. I took off from his place, and I went to go look into our factory, make sure the Foz XTR was coming along into production, and make sure we got our circuit boards, chassis right, this, that. And we discussed the SSX. And one of the things that came up was, what's all this open real estate on the other side of the chassis? So when I got back to the States, I gave Jim a call, said, hey, circuit's looking great, we're coming right along, but in terms of cosmetics, what are we going to do with the rest of the chassis? I mean, we've got this open real estate, what are we going to do? And Jim's sitting there. He's like, well, we can do like a three-dimensional, logo or something, make something that pops and, make it, dress it up. Well, going back to, my trip to see Fosgate, the guy has a museum in his house. It's what any audiophile would love to see because the equipment dates back to the 1930s. I mean, he's got everything. I mean, you get lost in time in there. I mean, there's so much stuff. And one of the products that he showed me was I think it was the FAP V1. Yeah, I think it's V1. It's one of the analog processor preamps that he had designed. And one of the cool features it had was the logic display, which basically shows, where the signal is going to, is it right channel, left channel, this and that. And I remember that and it kind of like tucked it away in the back of my head. And so when I came back to the United States from my trip and gave him the call, say, hey, what are we going to do with that real estate? And he said, oh, let's do something three-dimensional. And it just kind of dawned on me, like, almost like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, well, can we put that logic display in there? And Jim, I mean, and this is part of that partnership. Jim just looked at, over the phone. He's like, oh my gosh, Jerred, this is gonna be one of the most damn sexiest things we're ever gonna do. And right there, it was just like his old circuits, because believe it or not, both those circuits are about 30 years old in that SSX. But where I come in, I took two circuits that had never been working together, and we joined them. And it's just like, the old and new getting together and coming up with something new, something different, something that's going to have an impact on the industry.
That's a great story. And it sounds like it's great to work with Mr. Fosgate and seems like a good collaborator and a mentor. So I'm curious, now that you've transitioned to a new line, what is your most successful product?
Well, we got a few. If we go back to the Jolita years, it's definitely the JD9. I mean, I sold more JD9s, our $700 phono stage, than any other product that we made. I mean, that thing just flew off the shelves. But as Black Ice Audio, I would say at first it was the SSX because it was one of the first products that we designed, so it had the most time on the market. I mean, I've sold hundreds. We're getting ready to go into our 4th production run on that particular product. I think why that's the most sold product or made product at the moment is because it solves problems that people have in their systems. Most people, I mean, and I'm not talking about like, the audiophiles who have the sound room that have, the multi-$1,000 systems and this and that. But I'm talking about the average Joe that he wants sound, he wants music in his life. And a lot of times they're not able to place a system properly in a room. Okay, and that's either from room restraints, maybe wife restraints. She won't let you put the speakers where they need to be. Etc. Or you just got furniture in the way. Well, that throws things out of whack. You got an imbalance in the sound stage, or if the speakers are not placed properly, you hear the speaker. Okay, well, that's where the SSX comes into play. Once you connect this little magic box, and and really it's about a $400 room treatment device. Once you get it in and you find that sweet spot. It's like magic. I mean, all of a sudden your speakers disappear. It creates that three-dimensional holographic image and soundstage. And if your speakers are not properly placed, you have a little bit of leeway of where you want to focus. How much you can focus the soundstage, how much of a width of how wide you want your soundstage. Whereas if the speakers are properly placed, I mean, you have free range. I mean, you can get it to the point where the soundstage goes beyond the walls. Speakers have disappeared, the room disappears, the band is in the room. And not only does it do that, it adds, it adds a lot of weight and the good things that tubes bring, to a system. And then you also have the bass aspect of it. It's at the 20 hertz level. If you have a room that's getting a little boomy, turn it down. Or you have minor speakers, you need a little extra kick, turn it up. 9.5 dB either way. So yeah, I would say since the pandemic, the Fusion F360, the preamp, that has taken off. I'm already into my second production run on it, and it does have the SSX circuit built in, but on top of that, you have your tone controls, high and low EQs. You also have that 360 matrix circuit built in, so you can run it 2-channel or you can run it 4-channel. Now, what all these features do, and I think this is why it's becoming such a hot seller, is that preamp really makes you and the preamp itself the master of your system, because you can control your frequency range, highs, lows. You can control your horizontal, and that's using the soundstage expander or the Dimension Pro circuit, or you can control the vertical of the soundstage. If you find that when you're listening to a track and the voices are in between the tweeters, like at the tweeter level, turn on the EQ and turn the EQ up, and you'll find that the soundstage will rise above the speakers as you turn up the highs. And the same thing with the floor of the soundstage. You want to get a little bit lower soundstage, turn up your bass. So not only, it does a twofold there. And then you got the 360 matrix circuit. If you want more depth, add rear channels. Turn up the rear channels, and it'll bring out the soundstage into the room and then beyond that front wall. So yeah, it's got a lot of cool features, and I think a lot of people are gravitating to it, because I think we all know when we get down to it, it really is the source material, the recordings themselves. That's what really makes or breaks the stereo system. How good is that recording? And because there's so much inconsistency of these recordings, this is where that preamp comes in. If you need to turn up your highs, you can turn up the highs. You need to turn down the bass, you can turn down the bass. You need to throw out the sound stage and make it wider, you can do that too. So yeah, I think it has a nice niche in the market right now. Nice place in the market.
That's great. Interesting that you mentioned it has that display. So I think I've seen this before. Is it the 4 LEDs?
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
that one's really cool looking.
Yeah, so real quick, the 4 LEDs, they show, and let's start off by the left LED and the right LED. On a 2-channel stereo system, in a recording, when the left LED blinks, a signal is coming from the left channel, or going to the left channel from the recording, and then the right channel is the right channel. The top LED is what was recorded in phase, and the bottom LED is what was recorded out of phase. Now, as you're turning the soundstage expansion knob, so when you go counterclockwise to a narrow soundstage, you're going to a left plus right in phase. That's a center channel on a surround sound system. And you're going to see that you're going to get the left and right blinking, but the top LED is going to blink the most because everything's in phase. And then as you turn it wide, clockwise, you're going to left minus right out of phase, which is kind of like a rear channel on a surround sound. And you're going to find that if there's a lot of out of phase recording in the recording itself, that bottom LED is going to blink more because it's showing what's out of phase.
So you can actually analyze the recording in a way using this device.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And I would say, between the SSX and the F360, and what we're really trying to achieve with both those products is the problem solvers. You know, you have problems in your stereo system or in your room, you're able to help fix those with the electronics. I mean, if you ask me, Fosgate's a genius on this stuff, you know, and how we're able to help the consumer, help the listener dial everything in the way it should sound to them in a room.
Is this device available as an add-in to a system, or is this something that
Yes,
needs
it
to be
is.
built in?
Yes, it is. It's called the Foz SSX Soundstage Expander.
Yeah, I heard, yeah.
Yep, it retails for $400. So you can buy the standalone product, or you can jump up and get the preamp.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, right. Okay.
Jumping ahead there, Ben.
Oh, it's cool. It's cool.
No, it's all right. No big deal.
No, he was talking about it, so I thought I'd ask him a question while he was still
No,
locked
yeah,
into it. That was
that's why I'm here. I mean, I
Sorry.
wouldn't be here. No, it's totally cool. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. I mean, why would I be making these products if I didn't have, you know, people to sell to and help make their lives better enjoying music? I mean, that's really what it gets down to.
Well, I appreciate it. It's very interesting listening to what you're saying. You know, I'm a Jolito owner, by the way. I do have a little stereo integrated. Yeah, which I
Oh,
like.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Which one do you have?
And I won't interfere again. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm muting my.
All right, Ben, you voluntarily muted yourself. That wasn't me. Just so everyone knows. Well, I'd like to hear a little bit more about what's up next product-wise, because I know a little bit of something's in the works, something that sounds like a really revolutionary headphone amp, but maybe there's something else that you can share with us if you don't feel like talking about that particular item.
No, I'm not Apple. I can share with you guys what's coming up. So yes, I do have a new headphone amp. Let me save that for a little bit for last. In terms of what's in the works right now, I have what's called the F100s, the new model blocks, which if you see the video from 2019 Capital Audio Fest, you'll see the new model blocks that are coming out. So those are the next product that'll be hitting the market. The product that's in the works right now is what's called the Aries headphone amplifier. So the Aries. Fosgate's wife, Norma, named it. And I think it's a very fitting name because what this headphone amp does is it's quite unbelievable when you think about headphones. So this particular headphone amp, and maybe I should start off from the very beginning and why it all started. You know, we had started thinking about building a headphone amp, and you know, discussing with Jim. Jim had approached his support group, and most of his support group are elderly gentlemen like Jim that are in their 80s and maybe a little bit older, and most of them wear hearing aids. And if you guys know hearing aids, these new hearing aids that are coming out, I mean, they're pretty high tech. I mean, you can adjust your frequency range. You know, you got hearing disorder with a hearing aid, you can bring those frequencies back into play. So Jim took that concept and said, wait a minute, there's something here. So he took that concept and put it towards the headphone amp. So this headphone amp, and maybe I'll start off with the circuit design. It is a cascode circuit. It will be a 6SN7 tube feeding into a MOSFET that feeds into the Darlington pair circuit. And if anyone knows about the Darlington pair circuit, I believe it was developed 1951, 53, somewhere there, by Dr. Darlington. And it's basically a dual op amp circuit. So that is basically the headphone circuit. Now, in terms of the features that are before the circuit, you have volume, of course. You will have balance because nobody's ears are perfect. One's a little bit better than the other. So you have a balance knob there. But this is where it gets real interesting. The headphone amp is going to have separate high EQs, one for the left channel, one for the right channel. And for each high EQ, you will have 3 separate slopes that you can choose from, and you will be able to attenuate each slope. So if you have issues with your hearing, not a problem. Okay, you're going to be able to dial things in. In the bass department, we're running what's called the Twin T bass circuit, which was in the Fosgate Punch series way back then. And it will be on a 6-position attenuator at the 20 hertz level, jumping from 3 dB all the way up to 18 dB. And let me tell you, 18 dB is ludicrous. It will make your ass vibrate. Your whole body just vibrates. It's ridiculous. So it has that, and it also has the soundstage expansion circuit built in. Now, what makes this headphone amp so much different than the rest of the headphones amps that are out there? Most headphone amps, when you're listening, where's the soundstage? It's right here, right in the middle of your head. And you don't get that spatial feeling like a traditional 2-channel stereo system. This headphone amp, it's not here. It's like you're sitting in a room with a 2-channel stereo system without the constraints of the room, and it's all around you. It's 3-dimensional. I mean, when you're listening, I mean, stuff is popping, like it feels like it's 10 feet away from you. You're like, huh? So yeah, I mean, the new headphone amp, I think is going to be something else when it hits the market. In the Capital Audio Fest 2019 show, I had taken the prototype to the show so that Peter Brunginger with AB Showrooms could hear it. And Peter, I consider he's part of my support group. When I have something new, I like to get his thoughts. Is it good? Is it not? What do you think? So not too many people got to hear the headphone amp at that show, but Peter, I let him listen to it. And for a prototype, he actually gave it a Best Sound Show award because it blew his mind. He's like, I mean, there's a video out there. You can YouTube it. Best headphone amp I've ever heard, I think is what it's under. And he goes in that he listened to Robots or The Robots by Kraftwerks. And he's like, I'm at the concert. I can't believe this. It's unbelievable. So there's that. Now, I'm going to share something a little personal with you folks about Jim Fosgate and a lot of other people that are out there. And, we have this issue, with a lot of folks called PTSD. Fosgate has had it. And, it has a lot to do, I would say, with his health and everything. But he has found that listening to this headphone amp many hours a day, he no longer has issues. It's taken away the PTSD. And he has been working with a group, and they have built what's called a sanctuary. And the sanctuary is basically a room that has 8 lazy boy chairs in it, has a therapist station, and they're able to bring in clients that have PTSD. And they use the Aries headphone amp to help give the therapy that these individuals need. And it seems like it's doing wonderful things for people already.
That's awesome. That's a really cool story. I'm curious on the headphone amp. Will it strictly be a headphone amp, or will it have, I don't know, RCA outputs maybe to use it as a free, or?
In terms of the other features that the headphone amp's going to have, it will have the new DAC that we're working on. So that's also a tube DAC. It will be wireless, so you can connect directly to the internet. You can stream to it with your smart TV, with your iPad, your iPod, your phone, your computer. So you just plug it in the wall. No wires needed. It will also have DAC, a DAC output, so you can just use the DAC by itself. And I believe it also has pre-outs as well. Okay, and we're also designing the DAC, so not only is it for the hi-fi market, but we're also hitting the gaming market and the home theater market because of what it does. And every headphone amp is going to have 2 headphone outputs, so you and a friend can enjoy it.
Well, sound stage, very important in competitive gaming.
Oh yeah.
You want to be able to tell if someone's behind you.
It's funny you bring it up. I play the Xbox with my daughter, and one of my favorite games is Plants vs. Zombies. And you're absolutely right. When you're listening to it, you hear when someone's walking up behind you to plug in your package. It's pretty intense how you are now in the realm. You're no longer stuck between the earphones. You're in that space and you're fighting for your life.
Can only imagine. It probably will be a big thing for gamers. I mean, realism is super important. I've heard in that space. So I'm going to change gears here a little bit and just ask you a general industry questions. Since you've been in the business for a while, what would you say in the past 20 years is audio's biggest achievement?
When I read that question, I struggled on it a little bit. And here's what I came up with my answer. Inspiration. There is a multitude of companies that are out there. I mean, from 20 years ago. I mean, how many new, you look across, how many new turntable companies are there out there? How many new designs there are in cartridges? How many new circuit designs are there in amplifiers, preamplifiers? The list goes on. Not only that, who would have thought 20 years ago you could walk with thousands of songs in your pocket? It's unbelievable. Who would have thought there was $1 million system or multiple $1 million systems out there? Who would ever thought that? So I think it's really a reflection of the industry in itself, and that really inspires me. And so I think it's really the inspiration, for people to keep striving to do better.
So then, who would you admire most in the industry?
That was another tough question. There are quite a few, but I would have to say it's Mike Allen. He's been a mentor, to me. He's always been there to encourage me and to support me, and in the things that I'm trying to achieve. But also he's there to calm me down when I start pulling my hair out and freaking out and just going nuts. So yeah, it's Mike. I mean, he's really he's been really there for me.
That's great. I mean, I'm thinking he's doing a fantastic job because you've got plenty of hair. so you must not be.
Mike gets a hold of it.
Well, then, what are you most proud of that the audio industry has accomplished in recent memory?
You know what? I thought about this one too. I would change that question. What makes me proud? It's the phone calls. When I have a customer that has bought a product and he calls me up and he tells me how much this product has touched his life, and a lot of these guys, I mean, they get into it, and it's enjoyable. It really is. And at the same time, it drives me to be better, to make a better product, to take that extra time to make sure everything's perfect on the product, as we're sending it out, that knowing that someone's going to receive this And I can just imagine the look on their face when they open the product and they're pulling off the, they're pulling out the cloth bag, and there's gloves, there's the little chamois, reading through the manual. Then they're opening up the big foam cover off one of the amps, and they see a nice cloth cover. And knowing that, some people, it could have spent a lot of money, but overall, I think we're very affordable. And to get all that for the price, and to have a smile on their face, like, yeah, I made the right decision, and then get that phone call. Yeah, I mean, just that's what makes me happy. That's what I'm proud about, that we're touching people, we're making someone's life better, because music is a necessity. It's the it's the universal language. We all understand music. It all touches us in a certain way, so when people share that with me, it makes me feel good.
That's great feedback that you're getting, customers telling you that they're very happy that you've changed their lives, and that it motivates you to just continue to do it. I mean, you're really making people happy. That's an honorable goal in life. So where do you think then the industry can do a better job?
One key word, affordability. It really is. I think the industry has really been hit with this race war. Who can make the most expensive and outlandish piece of product, a piece of gear? Well, that's so cool in a way when you see it and you touch it and it's like, wow. But I think we have forgotten about that 90.9% of the people that are into audio. They can't afford it, and it kind of gets into the philosophy of Black Ice Audio. We're engineered for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're hi-fi, you're high end, or you're, I was laughing, with Mike earlier, like, can I say this? The virgin, someone who's just getting into it. We're there. We have the performance, we have the quality, but we also have that price point that everybody can get into. So I feel that we sit in the market where we're kind of like at the forefront, because we are affordable. We are there that anybody can get into it, and I think hopefully, with our design work, with, the cosmetics, the glass, the carbon fiber, the touch sensors, we are attractive to a lot of the new people that are coming into the industry. Like, oh, wow, this is cool. It's modern yet vintage. And I mean, with all the retro, with the VU meter and everything, I don't know. I think that's where, what I think the industry needs to kind of get back to is, we're doing it for the people, I mean, it's what we're here for. And so I think, affordability is one of the key things that the industry could do a little bit better on.
Amen. You won't get any argument from me. I think accessibility is key, and your line is very accessible, and the new design language is fantastic. I love the visualization, the look of your product line. So you guys nailed it on that, in my opinion. And then moving on to a couple more technical questions. These are write-ins. Gentleman was asking me if you have any plans, and this is very specific.
Yeah.
Integrated amp, but an integrated amp that has a 6SN tube preamp stage, a 200 watt per channel Class AB solid state power amp. It also includes a phono moving cartridge and moving coil section, built-in streamer, and a ladder DAC. So I'll be shocked if you have a product that fits this exact criteria. I mean, do you have anything that's going to incorporate maybe an integrated amp that has some streaming and a DAC built into it?
Well, we have discussed building hybrids down the road. I mean, we have so many products that are on the burners now, you know, like the headphone amp. We're actually designing the new, I think it's going to be called the Aries SSX. So instead of calling it the FOS SSX, MK2 or whatever, we're going to call it the Aries SSX. So we're going to take that upper portion of the headphone amp. So you got separate high EQs, the bass with the soundstage expansion. You know, we're going to have that as a new product with the new cosmetics, because the FOS SSX was kind of done in the transition. You know, as I was becoming CEO and my whole thought pattern of Black Ice Audio, and the FOS SSX was more of Fosgate's visual designs. So as we get into the Aries, we're going to get into the glass, the touch sensors, fully remote control with the soundstage expander, so you don't have to get up and turn the knob. So it's going to fit that. But in terms of, you know, all that's going on, yes, we have talked about building a hybrid amplifier integrated that uses a 6SN7, probably between 180 and 200 watts, because that's where we feel the industry needs. That is a very specific question, and it, you know, kind of hits home. And the reason why is I'm a fan of the 6SN7 tube. I mean, the things that particular tube does, and that's the particular tube that we're running in the F360, the headphone amp, the new DAX, the new Fosgate DAX circuit that's coming out. So we're working on that. I don't know if we'll add more products into one box. We're really not a believer of putting everything in one box, and here's why. Especially phono stages. You're talking about a product that has to jack up gain so high that's coming from a cartridge and then into the amplifier. Well, in an amplifier and a phono stage, there's a lot of interference that's going on in there. And if you have noise, what do you think that phono stage is going to do? It's just going to amplify it and then pump it into your amplifier, and it's going to come out your speakers. So I don't think we're gonna do like an all-in-one type of box. We'll probably keep those separate.
I'm excited that you're gonna do a hybrid 6SN7 pre and maybe a MOSFET AB solid state. I don't know. Fingers crossed.
It's down the road. You know, Jim and myself. You know, we have a few other products that we want to get done first, that we think that the industry really needs, and then, you know, we're going to follow up, you know, by bringing in the hybrids, you know, at a later date.
Gotcha. What about powered speakers? I know you know you don't manufacture speakers right now, but do you have any thoughts on those, or would ever consider going into that space? I mean, it'd be interesting to see a powered speaker that had tubes. I don't think I've ever seen that.
I've been asked to look into that with a few speaker manufacturers. I'm not going to tell you any names, but we've looked at it, thinking about it. I think right now and in the past, powered speakers, I mean, there's a place for it, especially maybe in the bass department, driving, you know, the bass. But in terms of, you know, what was happening in the past, I mean, you know, computer speakers are a perfect example. They work, they have their place, but they're not really high end. And I don't know if the industry and where we are, in terms of technology, we're there yet that we can produce a high-end sounding powered speaker. And here's why. You're talking about something that vibrates. And that's a lot to deal with. And to be able to get a speaker to be stable with an amplifier, especially tubes in it, to perform the way a traditional two-channel stereo system. Now, all that being said, is there, you know, Can we use power speakers? Do we need power speakers? I believe so. You know, I'm not afraid of them. I think, you know, as the world turns, places are getting smaller. I mean, the population is going up. Most people, you know, around the world can't put a two-channel stereo system in their house or in their living space. And that's where, you know, an application like a power speaker can really fit the bill.
Yeah, no, I think that they fascinate me a bit. I retract my statement of never seen a powered speaker when I think about old consoles that had tube amps built into them. That was sort of like the early powered speaker from the 50s and 60s. But you bring up a good point about microphonics. And yeah, that would just be a feedback loop in and of itself. But the tube picking up on the sound and then feeding it into the amp.
Yeah, but I mean, as you know, as we move forward, I mean, people are coming up with new ideas. I mean, new designs, way to decouple this, that. I mean, so, I mean, are we eventually going to get there? I think so. I think we're going to have a killer, you know, powered speaker, you know, in the future. That's just going to be dynamite, you know.
I hope so. I'm going to go to the group chat now. So, folks, please, if you have questions, type them in. And there's a couple already. And so this one came from Jeff. He's asking, how does Black Eyes tube which tube it will employ? And so I'm not quite sure, Jeff, I don't think he's on the call anymore. I'm curious as well, not so much maybe the tube, the type of tube, but maybe the brand of tube. Or maybe you could answer that both ways. How do you choose the type of tube, and then what's a good tube to use?
Okay, well, in terms of let's start off with the type of tube. We pick tubes that are readily available in terms of our design. Why build a tube amp for an obscure tube that there's X amount left in the world, and once they're gone, that product is basically obsolete. So our concept, or our design theory is let's make something that's still viable today and into the future because the tubes are readily available. So that's EL34, 6550s, KT8s, 12AX7s, 12AU7s, 6SN7s. Those are basically the ones that we look at. Now, in terms of brands, why we choose the brand of tubes that we do really gets down to two main reasons. Reliability, which is number one, and sound. So let me hit reliability first. For example, we picked the Tungsol 12AX7. Why? Because overall, it's a very clear tube. You're going to get the extensions of the highs. You're going to get somewhat of a full mid and with a tight bass, but it's very reliable compared to the other tubes that are out there. And the price point, it hits the price point. And let me go back into the reliability. There's nothing worse than getting a product in the mail, getting everything set up. You turn it on, and it doesn't work because the tube failed right after shipping. So we picked the tubes particularly for the reliability. And I would say the secondary, is sound. How do they sound? Could we do Svetlanas? Could we do reissue Mullards? I've listened to them all. I find that overall Svetlanas maybe are a little bit more of that softer, smoother type of sound. In some applications, it works well, whereas I find the Tungsol is more neutral sounding. We could go to the Mullard, but I find it's a little bit more edgy. It's a little bit more, a bit more of a grain in the highs than the Tungsol. So, and I think it's maybe a little bit more pricier than the Tungsol, but that's one of the reasons why we settled on the Tungsol 12AX7, for example.
That's great information. It'll help me pick a tube out. What about, and this is a question for me actually, you mentioned that there is some manufacturing overseas and then final assembly in the United States. Can you describe that? I mean, how does that work? What balance of manufacturing occurs here versus overseas? And then what does actually final assembly entail?
Okay. So basically, we are family owned, and we own our own factory overseas. So it's U.S. owned. We control everything. Whereas, I would say maybe a lot of other manufacturers, they're relying on parts. And, I've heard some horror stories, especially what's going on with this pandemic. People aren't getting their parts. Well, because we have so much control, everything's coming right over. No problems there. In terms of the manufacturing, my circuit boards are made, they're stuffed. My chassis are, they're constructed, painted, this, that. My panels are, like for example, the glass panels are produced over there. They are silk screened. They are, they have all their LEDs, attached to the surface, and all the wires and everything. And basically everything comes here for the final assembly. So we have a staff here that puts it together, goes through, testing, quality control, and then burn-in time, making sure everything's right. And then we pack it up and ship it out.
Wow, that's great. I had no idea. I mean, it was news to me that you did any manufacturing stateside, so that's fantastic.
Well, I mean, it's more of the assembly side of things that we do here. But at the same time, in terms of like this whole Terraform, for example, there are certain parts that we buy from other countries than the country that our factory sits in. So to reduce costs, we have those parts shipped directly to the United States. So when things come here, for example, like a particular circuit board, we finish stuffing the board, with that particular part.
Got it. Well, thanks for sating my curiosity.
No problem.
This next one is from PZ. I'm guessing this is Paul Zadell. I'm just shooting in the dark. It's one of our members. He asks, when do you think your headphone amp and the new DAC will be available?
Ooh, I think it's gonna be a little while. Right now, let me explain, a little something. I think you guys might get a kick out of this. Fosgate, when he designs a circuit, he still draws the circuit out on a light board, believe it or not. Everything's done by hand. And then we take that and we have to put it on the computer. So we can send that design off to get my circuit boards, printed, et cetera, et cetera. So taking what Fosgate does and transferring it into the real world, like on the computer, and making it all work, that takes time. So as of right now, all the designs are completed by Fosgate. Chassis dimensions, circuit board layouts, schematics, those are all done. We're still in the computer process where schematics are done. We're about 95% done on the board layouts. There's still a little tweaking left to do. And the reason why is this. In terms of audio, and I ask this question to everyone, what is the biggest enemy to audio?
Price.
Right?
I'm just joking around.
Noise. Noise is the biggest enemy, either outside noise or inside noise. And, I think everyone has probably experienced a hum or two in their lifetimes in their stereo system, or a buzz or something like that. Well, that can be self-induced, or it can be, you know, an outside induced noise. But why Jim designs the way he does and does everything by hand is to prevent that noise, that enemy being self-induced, okay, into the circuit. So when we get to the computer program, when you're using like a CAD program or some other type of software, you can literally punch in your values of parts, and the software will actually create the circuit board for you. That doesn't, you know, it's done. It doesn't necessarily mean it's correct in terms of noise. And so that's where Fosgate comes in. By doing everything by hand, I mean, we're, you know, in terms of like, say, our signal lines, our signal traces, they're back, they have a grounding, you know, on the other side of the board. There's a ground trace that covers those, that, you know, that you're blocking it from that side. And then on the signal side, we have ground traces in between the signal lines to keep the interference away from each channel. So, I mean, those are just some of the things that we do, or that he does, and we have to take that and basically put it to the computer. And sometimes, you know, it's difficult to get that on the computer. It's a lot easier than, you know, to draw something on a piece of paper and that, you know, copy it, you know. Sometimes the computer doesn't allow you to do it as quickly as you want it to do. So it just takes us some time. So we are there, like I said, 95% done with the board layouts. We're getting ready. I'm hoping maybe another week we're going to start the chassis, the diagrams on the computer. And my concept is basically we're going to have that glass front panel with the toggle switches and the knobs and everything, maybe some, you know, and of course the LEDs. But the chassis itself is probably going to be about 4 1/8 inches wide by 8 inches tall and about 12 inches deep. So it's going to be more of a vertical standing unit, kind of like a desktop computer. And why we're designing it this way is so that you can have it on your desk, and you can also have it on your bedside table, okay? And then in the rest of the design, I want to design the chassis where it is kind of like a computer. The side panel is actually a piece of glass like the gaming computers. And so you'll be able to see inside the headphone amplifier. And you have a couple like thumb screws on the back. You just loosen them up and the glass panel will slide out. You can change your tubes. You can look inside there, you know, whatever, and then, you know, close it up. Make it real easy for the end user.
No, that's rad.
You know, I think we're gonna have a bunch of LEDs in there. I think we're gonna do like a you know, Jim Fosgate's signature that'll all be LED backlit and everything. So it should be pretty fun to look at.
Yeah, that sounds rad. I can't wait to see it. I mean, I remember back in college, I had some roommates that had some really tricked out gaming computers, you know, where you could see all the guts on the inside. They put cold cathode.
Yeah, water cooled and oh yeah.
This next one is from Joe Goswami. He's asking if you have any plans to add an I2S interface to the DAC that you're in development on to separate the clock and data paths, or is the SPDIF good enough multiplexed on both ends?
Those are good questions. I don't know if I have an answer right now. We have the output stage completed. We're still in the digital, designing the digital front end. I have a crew. They're actually an outsourced company that helps me build the digital front end, the actual digital boards. I can tell you that we are looking, to probably have the latest and greatest, 32-bit. What are we up to? Is it 768? Is that what it is? 768 kilohertz. DSD 1064. I believe we're looking to do MQA. What else are we going to do? DSD. Yeah, I think I said that, DSD. Ethernet connections, Wi-Fi connection, USB, multiple toss link, I believe. So, and coaxial. So, don't know. Let's see what the guys come up with.
All right, another one from Joe. I'm interpreting this in saying now the sample rates. I agree. The sample rates are getting super high. And then he's asking 1 bit or not. So, Joe, could you help me out there on 1 bit? Are you talking like?
Well, that's DSD and SACD.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's going to do DSD, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, our current DAC, which I think you guys got to do the blind test with the DAC DSD Wi-Fi. That does DSD to 128.
Cool.
Yep. Now the question is, to do 1 bit or not. I love when I do audio shows, and when I throw on a recording and people ask, what's that recording? And I'm like, it's a WAV file, and they freak out. They totally freak out because they've never heard a WAV file,
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why don't you do? I'm like, it's if you want to do 24-bit, 16-bit, 1 bit, whatever, but it actually gets back to the original recording. How well was the recording? I have some 16-bit recordings that blow away my DSD recording or even my 24-bit recording. It's just, it gets to the recording itself.
Everything's always in how it's mastered and what it comes down to. Like there's some remasters that absolutely suck. And then there's other ones where like you said, the CD version, works just as well or better in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just dodged a bullet on the Red Book versus DSD topic here. All right, this next one is from Ben. He's asking, what is MQA? It never seems to be explained, and why do we need it?
What was that? Master Quality Audio, I think that's what it is. And who was it that developed it? It was not Marantz. It was the other company.
I thought it was like Meridian.
Meridian, there you go. It's just another format. I'm not quite sure. I mean, none of my products have MQA. It seems like more people are asking for it, so I think we're gonna, buy the chip. I think it's the tenor chip that allows you to do MQA. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure, what MQA is all about in terms of the coding behind it, but I don't know. I would like to put MQA up against one of my my WAV files and see how it does.
Maybe we need to share some WAV files, or at least tell us like what are these really high quality recordings. It's always good for us to know these things because we try to put together a list of reference recordings and acquire them so we can test them out on our equipment. And so if you have anything off the top of your head that's really just like, in your opinion, an awesome Red Book recording, fire away.
I would say one of the ones that I have is Henry Mancini, the Pink Panther theme. It's unbelievable. Now that being said, it's one thing to have, not only the recording for digital, but it's also your source. What are you using to translate that file into, the sound? Now, what I have found in terms of, I guess why I use the source that I use, okay? And here's some tidbits and maybe some of the reasons why I've won some Best Sound Show awards with the recordings is in terms of the operating systems, that's key. I know I'm probably gonna, ruffle some feathers on this, but Windows is terrible. Mac is a little bit better, but I found that running a Linux operating system, I've had the best results. I use Cinnamon 64 is the Linux operating system I use. Not only that, it gets down to what you store your files on. And what I've found, and I've been very fortunate that I have a friend who's been doing digital audio for about 20 years now. And he's pretty much tried anything and everything underneath the sun. And what he's come up with is there's two hard drives that you guys definitely want to look at. One is the Seagate 256 or Seagate Black 256 gig, nothing higher, and the Western Digital Black, nothing more than 2 terabytes. That Western Digital, probably the smoothest running hard drive out on the market today. And I think you can pick them up for, Seagate's like 50, 60 bucks. The Western Digital is like $100. Now, the key is running a casket box. Don't run that hard drive off your computer, okay, and using the voltage off your computer. Get a separate casket box that has its own voltage. And so not only are you able to, swap in and out your hard drives, but having that casket box that has its own power supply, that is the key. And what we have found is, usually they come with a wall wart. It's good. You're going to pick up the difference right away. But I find that it's, in terms of its current, its amperage rating, it's a little under what it should be. So if you up your wall wart from like 400 milliamps to about 1.4, 1.5 amps, the thing just comes to life. And I have a couple of recordings on my hard drive. One of them is iRobot by Alan Parsons. And I can say this because I've been behind the scenes on the United Home Audio UHA HQ reel-to-reel tape deck, which has been considered one of the best source components in the world many times over. I've helped voice that. I've helped Greg Barone with United Home Audio select the parts, get this thing out there. And I know how it sounds. I know how tape sounds. I have a couple recordings on that hard drive, and one of them is that iRobot. I am 98% there of reel-to-reel tape. The air, the frequency range, the dynamics, everything. It blew me away the very first time I heard that recording. It was like, oh my gosh. So in terms of digital, you can get there. You just got to know what parts work well together. Hard drives. How long of a USB cable am I running? What type of USB cable I'm running? What type of operating system I'm running, et cetera, et cetera. So once you figure out all the parts, you're gonna find that your digital goes beyond, I think, what vinyl can do and very close to what tape does.
That's some great information. I think I'm gonna have to check out that Alan Parsons track and give it a whirl. Well, I don't see any other questions, so I'm gonna do the final bell call here for the folks on the call. Going once, going twice. All right, no more questions. Jerred, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And I wish you sweet dreams. Now that I know it's quite late in the evening for you. Thank you again for joining us and speaking to our club.
You're so welcome, Paul. And thank you guys. This was really a treat. I really enjoyed myself. And if it wasn't for you guys, enjoying audio and the products, companies like myself wouldn't be here. Blacklights Audio, engineer for everyone. And if you are interested, here's a little shout out. Tom with Big Ear Audio, give him a call. See what he can do.
That's right. Tom Rothermel, for all those on the call, is the local dealer, and he's also he's actually a paid club member, so he comes to some of our events. But yeah, he's the guy in town now that sells black ice.
Cool.
Well, thanks again. Have a great evening, everyone. My next steps are to hunt down iRobot.
Me too.
Hope you enjoy it.
Thanks, Jerred.
Take care.
You're welcome.
Really good.
You guys have a great evening. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Great talking with you. Yeah. Bye-bye.